Chapter 11. The prettiest girl in class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong editor. Ice-T Roland rubbed his forehead that turned red after Qian Jin's flick and shook his head as he watched Qian Jin walk away with the money bag. He felt a little strange. Why isn't Qian Jin conscious of the glory and pride of being a warrior? Other people are challenging and fighting every day for a higher rank, but this guy doesn't have any intent or desire of doing that. Qian Jin rushed back to his residence with the money bag filled with coins. Buying a new set of sheets had lost its priority. The thing that was on his mind was that mysterious hat. He couldn't let anyone else find out about the hidden secret of that hat. It was safer to bring the hat with him wherever he went. He took huge steps and sprinted as fast as he could. He quickly got back to his residence and saw a girl with a long and blonde hair lightly knocking on his door. Christine. The prettiest girl in class. Qian Jin was surprised. Why did this girl come here? She was the only girl in grade 1 who made the top 10 fighting ability ranking. Qian Jin paused his steps and hesitated. He wasn't sure if he wanted to go back to his room right now. He didn't forget that the academy was chaotic due to the challenges and fights for the top 10 fighting ability ranking for each grade. Among all the grade 1 students, this woman was currently ranked 3rd on the list, and she had sent challenge letters to him more than once. However, the only purpose these letters served was for when Qian Jin went to the washroom and needed some toilet paper. As for those so-called observation seats and participation seats, Oakland Mage and Warrior Novice Academy had entered a state of madness. Anyone who had considerable strength and power could participate in ranking battles. After seeing this female warrior who had been challenging and fighting people all around campus appear at his front door, Qian Jin had suspected that she was here for the observation seats and substitute participation seats. The officials of the academy had announced that anyone who defeated someone from the top 10 fighting ability ranking would get a lot of points. In some people's eyes, Qian Jin, who was nominated by most of the students in grade 1 to be on the top 10 list, was a bunch of free points. I should better hide somewhere. I will go back after this girl leaves. Qian Jin turned around and tried to tiptoe out of the situation. He wanted to turn at the end of the hall so that she wouldn't be able to see him. Suddenly, a door beside Qian Jin opened. A student got out of the room and closed the door on his way out. Bam! The door shutting noise was a bit loud and caught Christine's attention. Qian Jin. A crisp, valorous voice resonated across the hall at the male dorm. Qian Jin pretended to not hear that and sped up his steps. Qian Jin. Qian Jin. Qian Jin. Christine realized that every time she yelled, Qian Jin would walk faster and pretend not to hear her. Want to run? Christine frowned as she chased after him. Qian Jin, don't try to hide. I know you can hear me. All the guys in the dorm opened their doors and stuck out their heads to see what was going on. A girl was yelling in the quiet male dorm. That was rare to see. In a few seconds, almost all the guys in the dorm had come out of their rooms to watch in the hall. Although Qian Jin didn't care how he was perceived by other people too much, he had to stop walking away and see what Christine wanted with all those eyes watching. Why are you running away? I'm not going to eat you. Christine stared at Qian Jin with her crystal blue eyes. She placed her hands on her slender waist. She was obviously unpleased with Qian Jin's behavior. However, the noticeable curves on her body were highlighted by the tight red warrior armor she was wearing. She became the center of attention in an instant. Her figure was already attractive, and it was hard to imagine how sexy she would become in the future. Qian Jin felt the envious and jealous stares coming from the other guys in the dorm. He complained to himself in secret, who's interested? I don't mind switching spots with any of you. Christine approached Qian Jin slowly, that on its own added some sexiness to her. Many guys in the dorm couldn't help but swallow their drool. If she wasn't a junior who had just been in the academy for less than a year, the crown of Queen at Oakland Mage and Warrior Academy would easily fall onto another head. However, it wasn't time to nominate the Queen this year yet. Qian Jin leaned against the walls in the dorm as he looked at the pretty Christine and asked, "Do you have something to tell me? If you want to challenge me, forget it. I'm not interested in fighting over that damn substitution participation seat with you." Christine stood in front of Qian Jin. A perplexed expression popped up on her beautiful face. Students from any Mage and Warrior Academy would be honored to participate in the Universal Hero Conference. It would make people envious and jealous even if someone just got an observation seat. Why is this guy not interested at all? It seems like he even despises the substitution participation seat. Could it be that he is only interested in an official participation seat? Official participation seat. Christine shook her head. Only the most talented students from the top-tier academies and young mages and warriors who have profound bloodline family backgrounds may get those opportunities. Qian Jin was very worried about his hat, so he looked at Christine and said, "Do you need anything else?" Christine, on the other hand, stopped thinking inside as she felt bad for Qian Jin's lack of ambition. "I didn't come here to challenge you to a fight. Instructor Rodriguez is looking for you. He wants you to go to his office." "Instructor Rodriguez is looking for me." Qian Jin became curious. Rodriguez can talk to students directly during class to any student. He's never had any precedent of talking to a student in private before. What is happening today? Christine got curious as well as she saw the unexpected look on Qian Jin's face. It looks like Qian Jin doesn't even know why Instructor Rodriguez, who never talks with students in private, is looking for him. "Okay, I got it." Qian Jin waved his hand as he walked by Christine and quickly got back to his room. He decided to hide the hat under his bed before going to Instructor Rodriguez's office. Christine stared at Qian Jin's back and reminded him loudly, "Instructor Rodriguez is still waiting for you." Qian Jin didn't bother turning around. He raised his hand as he said, "Yeah, I will be there in a second." "Instructor is looking for him." Roland's head popped out of the corner at the end of the hall. He quietly talked to himself as he watched Qian Jin walking into his room. Did the instructor get the news this fast? Christine heard that and asked Roland, who was beside her, "What news?" "Oh." Roland smiled as he got closer to Christine. A proud and cocky expression appeared on his face as he replied, "You probably don't know. Qian Jin just destroyed Rudy in an arm wrestling match. Instructor Rodriguez must be looking for him for this reason." Rudy. That tough bull Rudy. Chapter 12. Retest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T. Christine's voice rose. Her crystal blue eyes blinked quickly as she couldn't believe what she heard. No one doubted Qian Jin's actual fighting abilities. However, in terms of pure strength, Qian Jin might only win against Rudy if he used both of his arms to wrestle. He only stood a chance if it was a 1-on-1 fight. Roland felt more proud as Christine couldn't believe him. He stood up straight, lifted his chin and placed his hands on his waist as he laughed. "Of course, who else is named Rudy in the academy?" Qian Jin kicked his ass 3 times in a row. There was no luck involved. How about that? Astonishing, isn't it? A strange expression appeared on Christine's face. She looked at Qian Jin's room as she lifted her chin up with her palm. He is able to beat Rudy in strength. Was he always hiding his true abilities? If that is the case, then he probably won't be interested in just a substitution participation seat. He must be in disguise, trying to trick people into thinking that he isn't that strong. I have to hide the hat well. I must. All of what happened today can be attributed to this mysterious hat. Even if I can't find the precious warrior energy training scroll in the treasure map, I can still change my future. Qian Jin crawled under the bed and tightly tied the hat to the bottom of the bed frame with the torn sheet. He then crawled out and made his bed so other people couldn't find anything strange about it. After that, he cleaned the dust off himself and quickly walked out of the room. Most of the warriors had a straight and short temper. Instructor Rodriguez was the golden example of a warrior. Qian Jin didn't want the instructor to wait too long, he might get punished for it and lose time to study the hat. The people were still in the hall. The first person he saw was Christine. The prettiest girl in the class had more curiosity on her face, and her intent of challenging him seemed obvious. OSH*T. Is she going to challenge me to a fight again? Qian Jin swore in secret. He lowered his head and looked down at the path in front of him as he tried to quickly sneak out of the situation. Qian Jin. Christine stared at his back and shouted, "Are you really not interested in the substitution participation seat for the Universal Hero Conference?" Not interested at all. Qian Jin swung his arm. He paced himself as he mumbled quietly, "With the strength and energy I have right now, I would end up getting my ass kicked even if I got the substitution participation seat and participated in the competition. Why would I want that? Substitution. That's too shameful. If I want to go, I will get an official participation seat." Official participation seat. Christine was always proud of her excellent hearing ability. However, when she heard Qian Jin's quiet mumble, she felt that her ears were not functioning properly for the first time. This grade 1 student has such an ambition. If I want to go, I will get an official participation seat. That is the kind of seat that warriors and mages in grade 2 or grade 3 can only dream about. But from his tone, it sounded like he knew a lot about the Universal Hero Conference. Qian Jin was walking faster than usual as he was thinking about the hat. In a few turns around the campus, he got to the warrior branch's instructor dorms. Instructor Rodriguez's room was easy to find. Qian Jin calmed himself before knocking on the door. The hat incident that happened at the last test was very embarrassing. This was especially the case since a warrior student couldn't even dodge a hat and was knocked out by it. He lightly knocked the door as a rough uninhabited voice said, "Come on in." Qian Jin recognized Instructor Rodriguez's voice. He pushed open the door and walked in. The room was a bit messy, but it looked like a male's room from the way stuff was placed. Instructor Rodriguez was sitting at a table. As a warrior, Instructor Rodriguez was on the shorter and thinner side. However, everyone at the academy had to admit that although this instructor wasn't particularly strong or exhibit tremendously powerful fighting abilities, his teaching ability was far better than instructors who were stronger than him. Noel.N. Rodriguez raised his head and looked at his favorite student. He smiled bitterly. Qian Jin had the ability to get to the 3rd rank on the grade fighting ability ranking and receive a substitution participation seat for the upcoming Universal Hero Conference, but he was the least enthusiastic warrior on the top 10 list. Rodriguez really wanted to help Qian Jin get an observation seat at least. He hoped that the competition during the Universal Hero Conference could light up a fire in Qian Jin's heart so it would motivate him to prepare and fight for an official participation seat in his 2nd year. However, before the test for qualifying candidates for the seats began, Qian Jin was knocked out by the hat and was disqualified. Qian Jin saw Rodriguez's smile and sighed as he scratched his head. "Instructor, you didn't call me here to just laugh at me, right?" Rodriguez glanced at a chair to signal Qian Jin to sit down. Qian Jin pulled the chair towards him and sat down bluntly and said, "Thanks, instructor." Rodriguez was delighted by that fact that Qian Jin could understand what he meant by just a glance. This student was great at observing and understanding. If he was disqualified to get an observation seat because he was knocked out by a hat, then it would be truly unfortunate. After a few seconds of silence, Rodriguez spoke, "After I talked to the managing director many times, I still can't get you a retest." Retest. Qian Jin was surprised, but he knew immediately what Rodriguez was trying to do. The managing director's round chubby figure also appeared in his mind, as well as Caesar's swollen, beaten-up face. After he kicked Caesar's ass in the practice fight, the managing director became really mad and upset. It wasn't because the managing director was protective of all students, but it was simply because Caesar's was his nephew. It was also because of this relationship that Caesar's was arrogant and cocky all the time and dared to bully and beat up other students in private. Luckily, only the principal of the academy had the authority to expel students. Otherwise, Qian Jin would have been kicked out of the academy right after that incident by managing director Kaler. Chapter 13. Challenge Bloodlines. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T. Of course, the reason why Qian Jin dared to beat Caesar's that hard was because he knew Kaler couldn't do anything but get angry. However, he didn't expect the managing director be deciding his fate would one day. Instructor, it's okay if I can't get a retest. Qian Jin shrugged his shoulders to show that he didn't mind that at all. This test won't affect the quality of the warrior energy concentration array that I will get in the future anyway. I can still get the chance to use the premium one, *T. Rodriguez slammed the desk with his average dot-sized hand. It made the teacups and books on his desk jump up a little. Although it is not related to the quality of warrior energy concentration arrays that you may use, it's directly related to whether you can go to the Universal Hero Conference. If you don't go to the conference, you won't know how strong and powerful true warriors are. If you don't go to the conference, then what can make you work harder to try to get an official participation seat next year? Qian Jin felt it was funny as he saw Rodriguez getting excited. From the very beginning, since Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy was founded, all the students were eliminated at the qualifying round. They were just there to accompany the other academies. Qian Jin, although I'm not a top warrior, you have to trust my experience and instinct. Rodriguez got more and more excited. You are the most talented warrior student that I have seen. You will become a strong and powerful warrior in the future. Although you might not be able to fight against bloodline warriors, that won't stop you from becoming a great warrior that can contribute greatly in the battle with the demons. Bloodline warrior. Qian Jin frowned, but that expression only stayed on his face for a few seconds. He slowly knocked the armrest on the chair with his fingers. What a familiar word. But ever since the primary awakening test, this word had instantly become something he couldn't even dream about, as if it was on the other side of the cliff. I believe in you, Qian Jin. You are the most talented student that I have seen at the academy. Rodriguez's passion and excitement didn't drop at all as he raised 2 fingers. 2 years. Only 2 years. When you get to the grade 3 and become a higher level warrior in the academy, you will be the guy that represents Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy at the Universal Hero Conference and attract the attention of the famous higher level academies. That would benefit your future greatly. It would be to the extent that you couldn't even imagine. At higher level academies, the talented warrior students are able to use the premium warrior energy concentration array alone to advance their warrior energy ranks. Do you know how much it would help you with the advancing success rate? Warrior Energy Concentration Array. Qian Jin tried to understand Rodriguez's perspective. He felt a little bitter. Warrior Energy Concentration Arrays would somewhat determine a warrior's future success. The famous advanced academies had many varieties of warrior energy concentration arrays, and they also had many energy stones. But most of all, they had far more advanced training scrolls compared to average academies. Getting an admission to a famous advanced academy meant a great future for a lot of people. There were academics who spent all their time studying warrior energy concentration arrays. They had a lot of financial backings and were able to get the expensive energy stones that ordinary people couldn't afford. They had many advanced training scrolls and were still purchasing more of them from their own secret connections. Qian Jin sighed. Advanced energy training scrolls. They were so close to him at one point, but now they were all gone. If he didn't pick up the books that had a pile of dust on it at the family library and find a strange map with special notes of Supreme Wind and Cloud Energy Training Scroll, on it, he would probably never come to Oakland in the first place. Qian Jin, although this test is not directly related to the quality of warrior energy concentration array that you can use later at the academy, it does indirectly affect it. Rodriguez stepped closer to Qian Jin as he spoke. If you can't enter a famous advanced academy, then where would you find energy stones to construct premium warrior energy concentration arrays to advance your warrior energy and become a great warrior? Therefore, Rodriguez stared at Qian Jin unwaveringly as he concluded, you can't have this kind of attitude towards this test. If you are able to get a substitute participation seat, you would be able to observe the battles of the most talented warriors up close. In 3 years, as long as you are not that unlucky and are placed in the same bracket as the Elf King bloodline warriors from the Qian family at the qualifying round, then you might be able to gain a spot in the final Universal Hero Conference. There are only a small number of participation seats for the final conference that are allocated to the 4 treasure state that we are in. By that time, you will have a high chance of getting into a famous advanced academy. That's right. Rodriguez nodded as he spoke, as if he was motivating himself. As long as you don't meet the Elf King bloodline warriors from the Qian family. Who knows if the young warriors from the Qian family, one of the 3 ultimate supreme bloodlines, have awakened their bloodlines. Awaken. Qian Jin smiled bitterly. Only one of the bloodline warriors from the Qian family was able to reach his or her ultimate awakening once in hundreds of years. However, if the Qian family only had a single ultimate awakened bloodline warrior, then it could never exist for that long. Except for the ultimate awakened bloodline warrior who would be one of the most powerful warriors on this continent, some of the warriors in every generation would have their primary bloodline awakened. There were more than 30 warriors who had their primary bloodline awakened in the Qian family last year, and they became bloodline warriors. It made the history for the most bloodline awakenings in the Qian family for a given generation. From the documents in the Qian family, it was said that one of the warriors in this batch would have an ultimate awakening. Therefore, the Qian family paid extra attention and protection to these 30 primary bloodline awakened warriors. One of them might elevate the Qian family to its absolute peak and dominate over the other 2 ultimate supreme bloodline families. That's right, from all the awakenings that had been tracked over history, there was not even a single case where the 3 ultimate supreme bloodline families had ultimate awakened bloodline warriors around the same time. When one of the families had an ultimate awakened bloodline warrior, they would temporarily become the most powerful family among all of humanity. Wait. Rodriguez shook his head. With my assistance, if you are willing to work hard, you would still stand a chance if you face an Elf King bloodline warrior from the Qian family, even if they practice both professions, warrior and mage. Elf King bloodline warriors were great mages as well. Qian Jin felt more bitter. There was a reason why Elf King bloodline warriors were able to become one of the 3 ultimate supreme bloodlines on the human side. They had their own secrets that outside people didn't know about. Even an Elf King bloodline warrior who had just a primary bloodline awakening would have an alarming growth. This was especially with mages and warriors in a single body. Elf King bloodline warriors were their enemies' nightmares. Chapter 14. Is your ass itching for a whooping? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T, defeating an ordinary bloodline warrior as an ordinary warrior is already an impossible mission. Defeating an ultimate supreme Elf King bloodline warrior who has a primary awakening. Instructor Rodriguez really dares to dream big. Qian Jin lightly sighed. People who had never seen bloodline warriors before couldn't even imagine how powerful they were. If someone thought that they would beat a bloodline warrior, would it be called naive or arrogant? Primary awakening, although it is only a primary awakening, Elf King bloodline warriors. Qian Jin shook his head. This world was unfair. There were people who could instantly have a successful future just because they had awakened their bloodlines. They didn't need to be talented or smart, because awakening their bloodline overrode all talents and most intelligence. Qian Jin looked down at his arms and body and sighed. His family name is Qian as well, but why didn't the bloodline inside of him wake up during the bloodline awakening ceremony? His only option was to come to this city and try to find the energy training scroll that was described in that treasure map. Even if he couldn't become an invincible bloodline warrior, he might be able to gain a great amount of strength and power and survive in this world that operated on the law of the jungle. If he was fortunate enough, he might not be able to defeat the bloodline warriors from the 3 ultimate supreme bloodline families, but he might be able to defeat bloodline warriors from other less powerful bloodlines, such as the Wolf King bloodline. Qian Jin, Qian Jin. Rodriguez waved his arms in front of Qian Jin. What are you thinking about? How about it? I truly believe that you will become a great warrior. Qian Jin smiled as he looked back at Instructor Rodriguez. If it wasn't because he wanted to show his family members who looked down on him that he could still be a great warrior even if he couldn't awaken the Elf King bloodline in his body, he would currently be in a bustling city making money as a family merchant. That would be great. Qian Jin was interested. What kind of methods do you have? How should I cooperate? First of all, you need to participate in the retest. Rodriguez's serious face suddenly lost focus. Then, after seeing that Rodriguez didn't have much to say, Qian Jin smiled and said, "That's okay, instructor. I know what to do. Thank you very much. I will go do the retest. Just tell me after you have arranged everything." Rodriguez burst into laughter. Great. That's more like it. Qian Jin wanted to buy a new set of sheets, find another job and return to his room earlier to study that mysterious hat. He said, "Instructor, thank you for your time. I will see you around." After he stepped out of the instructor's dorm, he saw someone who was standing not too far away. He instantly doubted his choice of leaving his room today. I usually don't have anything to do other than going to class. Train, work and sleep. Why are there so many things happening today? Caesars, the one who beat up Roland with his henchmen just to threaten him not to pursue Julius anymore, had come back to the academy after Qian Jin beat him up, resulting in a period of hospitalization. Caesars was tall and lean. He was even a bit taller than Qian Jin. He could be considered handsome, but his aquiline nose had decreased the handsomeness of his face. 3 other students followed him. They were all different heights, and they all put on provocative expressions on their faces after they saw Qian Jin. Caesars and his henchmen spread across the narrow path and blocked Qian Jin. Qian Jin looked at Caesars, who was in a brocade suit. "You want to block my path? Is your ass itching for a whooping again?" Qian Jin said as he frowned. Then, he stretched his shoulders and neck. The crackling of his knuckles and his impatient sneer gave Caesars and his 3 henchmen a chill. The last time Qian Jin showed his truth strength to kick Caesar's ass, it left a crazy impression in their minds. "Qian Jin. You. Don't get too full of yourself." Caesars took a step back. He was so nervous that he was stuttering, I'm not scared of you. I'm here to tell you to come to the little forest behind the academy after dinner. We will figure out our grudges." The little forest behind the academy was a place where the students could resolve disputes privately. Even the instructors had accepted that. Qian Jin laughed. The academy should increase the training for these bored students who didn't have to earn a living. "What? Are you scared?" Caesar said. "You can't take that." Qian Jin didn't know what to say. He could easily beat people like Caesars with one hand. He didn't know where Caesars got the courage from. If he had more time, he would do more work at a job and make some money or study that mysterious hat more. Why would he waste his time by going to the little forest? Move. Qian Jin pushed Caesars out of the way. The strength that could defeat Tough Bull Rudy made Caesars lose balance, and Caesars but met the ground in an instant and picked up some dust. Caesars looked at Qian Jin's back and yelled angrily, "Qian Jin, meet me up at the little forest after dinner. Otherwise, you will be sorry." Qian Jin didn't even bother looking back as he waved his hand and said, "If you are itching for some beating, go find your mom. I don't have time to teach you lesson on behalf of your mom. You guys don't even pay me anything. You." Caesar smashed his fist on the ground. "You will regret this. You will regret this if you don't come to the little forest." Caesars, Why are you so anxious? Caesars got up and slapped the dust off his bottom. He said with a confident expression, "I have a way of making him to go to the little forest. This time, I have found a helper, and I will see him get beat up so badly that he can't even get off of his bed for weeks." Caesars. It feels like he got even stronger. What are you scared of? Is he that strong? Caesar spat on the ground. He is only ranked number 10 on the fighting ability rankings in grade 1. The person I found this time is also on the top 10 list. Qian Jin is only the last one on the rankings, so why should we be scared? Caesars, you are so smart. Yeah, you are right, Caesars. The three henchmen nodded and agreed. The academy would list out the top 10 warrior students for each grade. Although all of them were top 10, there would be a wide degree of variation between each one of them. Although the number 9 seat and number 8 seat were close, sometimes, the number 8 seat could instantly beat the number 9 seat. It was something that wasn't unheard of. Although Qian Jin was ranked among the top 10 for grade 1, he was the last person on the list. A lot of people said that he barely made it. If Caesars was able to find a warrior student that was ranked higher than Qian Jin, then it would be easy to beat him. Chapter 15. The job that no one can get. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T Oakland was a small border city. Although it was close to the northern barbarians and orcs, it wasn't really a useful strategic location. Due to the long period of peace, it had slowly become a commercial city. Hence, it was close to the Sunset Mountains, and there were a few more types of guests. Mercenaries, adventurers and greedy merchants. Gradually, hotels, blacksmith shops and other weaponry shops became the major sources of income for the city. Even the Empire's army would order some weapons and armor from Oakland. After Qian Jin left Instructor Rodriguez's place, he didn't head back to his dorm right away. He still needed to get the sheets, or else he could only sleep on the mattress. On top of that, he still needed to find a job. After getting knocked out by that strange hat during the test, he had locked himself in his room for 3 days and didn't show up for his work at Old Ford's pub and bar. According to the contract, that meant automatic termination. Therefore, he had to find a new part-time work. The allowance that his family gave wasn't even enough to pay for food, let alone buy nutritious supplements. Qian Jin quickly found a store on a busy street and bought a cheap set of sheets with a few coins. After getting that out of the way, he wandered around and looked for a job. However, Qian Jin wasn't the only student at Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy that didn't have money. All the jobs that a student could do were mostly occupied. After job hunting through several streets, he only received the same response. They were not looking for people. We are not hiring at the moment, you could try other shops and stores. It was the same response again. Qian Jin sighed as he turned around. He didn't want to hear whatever the person had to say after that. You could try the blacksmith shop at the end of the street. I think they are looking for people. Qian Jin suddenly stopped moving. Working in a blacksmith shop was quite different from working in other shops and stores. It required more than strength, it required good endurance of heat and some technical skills. On the positive side, the job paid more than others. Qian Jin remembered that at the beginning of this academic year, a student wasn't able to find a job at the stores and shops close to the academy and tried to get into Franklin's blacksmith shop located at the end of this street. At first, he thought that all he had to do was to swing hammers, but it turned out that being a blacksmith required skills. After many students failed to get a job there, it was agreed that the work at the blacksmith shop didn't fit the students from Oakland Warrior and Mage Academy. Blacksmith. Working with metals. Qian Jin murmured. He thought about the work he did at that strange virtual endless world. He learnt the basics of blacksmithing in the 16 hours, and it seemed like old Blake was quite pleased with his attitude and effort. Maybe he could try out for the blacksmithing job that not a single student got. Qian Jin turned around, bowed to the mid-aged man who gave him the recommendation and said, "Thank you." The man was surprised. Although students from Oakland Warrior and Mage Academy worked part-time jobs, they felt that they were superior. In the worst-case scenario, they were able to become patrol officers after they graduated. That counted as a public official. Although that would be at the lowest level in the Empire system, students rarely thanked people for things like this. On top of that, because of the existence of the Demon Empire, warriors and mages were the main line of defense on the human side. That also raised their status, and the warrior and mage students were very proud and would sometimes come off a little arrogant. Qian Jin quickly walked down the street. Soon, he heard patterned metal colliding noises that might have sounded boring to other people. Ha! Qian Jin paused as he got to Franklin's blacksmith shop. He was a bit confused. He had walked by this blacksmith shop many times before, and the metal colliding noises sounded harsh and boring. Why did it sound so special today? He listened closely, and it sounded like there was some kind of rhythm to the irregular metal colliding noises. Franklin's blacksmith shop occupied 5 times the space compared to some other shops. There were some ugly writing on the board in front of the shop. Blacksmiths wanted. That was the only thing on the board. There was no mention of pay or other criteria. Qian Jin stepped into the shop and the metal colliding noise coming from the back rooms sounded clearer. "Little warrior, what are you looking to buy?" A muscular man appeared in front of him. The man was taller and wider than Qian Jin. His sweaty chest was mostly exposed, and he was only wearing a loose shirt. He was holding onto a hammer, and a wet towel was hanging on his neck. His short blonde hair was covered with sweat, and his rough voice sounded very valiant. Qian Jin paid extra attention to the hammer that this man was holding. It looked like it was about 30 pounds. Qian Jin could tell that this hammer had a history just by looking at how the leather was coiled around the handle. "I'm not here to buy anything." Qian Jin had to raise his head to look at the man in his eyes. He pointed at the entrance and said, "I saw that you guys are looking people, so I wanted to see if I qualify." "You." The man narrowed his eyelids and squinted his blue eyes as a doubting expression appeared on his face. "A student from Oakland Warrior and Mage Academy." Qian Jin pointed at the logo on his Academy Warrior uniform and said, "Yes, I am." The doubt in the man's eyes grew stronger. He shook his head and said, "You should go and try other shops. We don't hire any students from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy." "Ah. Why?" Qian Jin was surprised. He finally found a potential employment, so how could he leave like this? "Why?" The man grabbed an end of the towel and wiped the sweat off of his face. "Didn't you know? Since Franklin's blacksmith shop opened, not a single student from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy was hired. What we are looking for are blacksmiths, not brats who are arrogant and think there is nothing to blacksmithing and that anyone could do it. People like that could never work as a blacksmith apprentice." Qian Jin didn't expect that at all. He thought the students in his grade were the only ones who got rejected by Franklin's blacksmith shop. However, it turned out that there was not even a single student from Oakland Warrior and Mage Academy who worked at Franklin's blacksmith shop. Chapter 16. Too Light. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T. If this was before, Qian Jin would immediately turn around and try to find a job somewhere else. However, he had no luck job hunting the last few hours. This was the only potential opportunity he had, so he wouldn't let it go that easily. "I'm not the same." Can you at least let me try? Right after Qian Jin said that, the workers at Franklin's blacksmith shop storefront, including the man, started laughing. A worker who was placing a newly forged sword onto the shelf said, "Little warrior, it is not the first time we have heard this. Almost every student from Oakland's Warrior Mage Academy said that when they came here. The result? They proved that they were all the same. Damn. Coincidence. How weak were the students who came here for a job?" Qian Jin swore in his mind. "Francis, are you loafing on the job again?" A man shouted as he walked out of the back room. He sounded a bit angry. He wasn't tall, with his big muscles, he looked like a dwarf. He had a huge hammer in his hands which looked like it was at least 100 pounds. "Brother, I'm not being lazy." The tall man Francis jumped back a little. He seemed scared of the short man. He shook his head as he pointed at Qian Jin with his hammer. "It is because of him. He said he wanted a job here. I was just telling him that we don't hire." "You." The man who just entered the storefront looked at Qian Jin. A doubting expression similar to Francis appeared on his face. He waved his unoccupied hand and said, "Kid, you are from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy, right? Train harder at your academy and don't cause trouble for us. Blacksmithing is not that simple." Similar words, similar attitude. Qian Jin was very pissed at his seniors. In past Universal Hero conferences, students from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy were all defeated in the qualification round, so they had a bad reputation among other academies. Did they also have a bad reputation at this blacksmith shop? If this got passed around in the city, then Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy would definitely lose some of its prestige. Qian Jin somewhat regretted wearing the academy's uniform today. The uniform that would normally bring him pride had brought him contempt today at this blacksmith shop. Qian Jin glanced at the hammer in that man's hand. He could tell it was heavy just from the look of it. Although he learned blacksmithing at that so-called endless world for about 16 hours and his strength had increased a lot, that didn't mean that he really got the hang of blacksmithing. "How about you just let me try?" Qian Jin shrugged his shoulders as he said, "Aren't you guys looking for people? You guys won't lose anything if you let me try." "Yeah boss, just let him try." "Yeah, let's see what he can do." The few workers who were at the storefront and in charge of sales shouted at the dwarf-like man. At this point, Qian Jin had realized that this man was the owner of this shop, Franklin. Franklin glanced at these workers helplessly. These guys just enjoyed watching drama, especially drama involving students from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy. He looked at Qian Jin again. Qian Jin didn't look that strong and sturdy, but he could be considered lean and robust for his age. His muscles were flexible and not stiff. Just from his look, he met the basic requirements of a blacksmith. However, blacksmithing took skill. Franklin didn't want to hire someone who didn't know anything. "Okay then." Franklin turned around and walked towards the workshop in the back room with his 100-pound hammer as he said with a hopeless tone, "You can try." Francis followed Qian Jin and walked into the back room as well with his hammer. He was waiting to see Qian Jin fail and couldn't wait to laugh at him. The workshop at the back was completely different from the storefront. As soon as Qian Jin stepped into the back room, he immediately felt waves of hot air rushing towards him. The metal colliding noises were loud and had no particular pattern. Shiny sparks flew all over the place. A lot of muscular men were half-naked as they swung their hammers. Sweat slid off of their upper bodies and stained their pants. A blacksmith stopped what he was working on and stared at Qian Jin in curiosity. He yelled at Franklin who was leading the way with a hoarse, dehydrated voice, "Boss, why did you bring a student from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy here? Is this today's entertainment?" This comment instantly created a lot of laughter. Franklin shook his head. Although he knew that the students from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy were good at battling demons and were not blacksmith material, the blacksmith shop really needed more hands. He just wished that he was lucky enough to hire students from the academy that knew some blacksmithing basics. Qian Jin followed Franklin to a small forge. Franklin looked up at Qian Jin as he casually threw a pig iron into it. He worriedly said, "Just try your best. Be careful. The pig iron will be very hot when it turns red. You can be burnt even if you have warrior energy to protect yourself." Qian Jin felt a powerless frustration after he heard that. Do I look that dumb? He thought to himself. Iron would be hot if it turned red, that was common sense. Did a senior student try to demonstrate his strong warrior energy by grabbing the hot iron with his bare hands, getting burnt in the end? That would be so stupid. The burning fire heated the pig iron up, and it gradually turned red. Franklin pointed at the hammers that were placed at the corner of the room with his chin and said, "Go pick one, and then start." Qian Jin looked at the hammers at the corner and found that the heaviest one only looked like it weighed about 30 pounds. Although he only used the hammer once in the endless world, he felt like he preferred the heavy hammers. It would make him look stronger and cooler as well. A few blacksmiths close to him laughed and said jokingly when they saw Qian Jin stood still, "Little warrior, can you lift these heavy hammers?" "It's okay, look to your right. There is a hammer that weighs about 3 pounds. This comment made more people laugh. Almost all the blacksmiths stopped working and couldn't wait to see the performance from this warrior from Oakland's academy. They had seen this too many times, but they would never get bored of it. This. Qian Jin scratched his head as he said, "These are too light." The laughter immediately stopped. The dozen blacksmiths all had strange expressions on their faces, as if they had more than 10 eggs stuffed in their mouths. The muscles on their cheeks and the corners of their eyes quickly started twitching after getting stiff. Then, even louder laughter resonated in the workshop. Some people even had to bend their backs and squat down because their stomachs hurt from laughing. Chapter 17. An official blacksmith. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T. This little warrior was saying at a 30.5 pound hammer was too light. Did he think that he was going to use the hammer in a battle, and all he had to do was to knock the enemy out with a single strike? This was blacksmithing. Blacksmiths had to swing their hammer numerous times to beat the pig iron. Franklin sighed as he patted Qian Jin on the back. "Young man, it looks like you don't have any experience. You are better off finding a job somewhere else. I'm only hiring experienced blacksmiths." Owner. Qian Jin stood there and pointed at the 100-pound hammer in Franklin's hand and said, "I want to borrow your hammer." "What?" Franklin looked up at Qian Jin. He thought his ears weren't working properly. "This young man wants to use my hammer," he thought to himself. The surrounding blacksmiths were shocked and even forgot to laugh. After Franklin's blacksmith shop was opened, all sorts of students came here to look for a job every single year. However, no one had ever asked to use Franklin's hammer. The gigantic body and the huge handle, any rational person would know that this hammer was very heavy. "Son, are you mad at us for laughing at you? You don't have to choose the heaviest hammer here to prove yourself." After recovering from their shock, the blacksmiths laughed even louder. "Just let me try," Qian Jin causally said. Franklin shook his head as he bitterly smiled. He felt that young people nowadays were getting more and more full of themselves. He handed over his hammer as he said, "Be careful, this hammer is heavy. Don't drop it on your feet. It is safer to hold it with 2 hands." Qian Jin smiled back as he shook his head as well, insisting on only using his right hand. He repeated the same sentence, "Just let me try." Franklin carefully observed this overconfident young man and silently passed over the hammer. Qian Jin's arm dropped a little as he grabbed onto the hammer, but he paused as he held onto the hammer tightly. "Oh!" The crowd let out a deep, surprising shout. Some people even gasped loudly. The teasing expressions on the blacksmiths' faces froze, and their expectation of Qian Jin failing burst like a bubble. Qian Jin weighed the hammer in his hand. It was about 110 pounds. Although it was a lot lighter than the hammer that he used in the Endless World, it still had a good weight to it. Qian Jin felt that he could use this hammer more smoothly than that 30-pound hammer. Franklin, on the other hand, was very surprised. He was the only person in this blacksmith shop that could use this hammer. He didn't expect this young man to hold on to it this easily. This amount of strength would be rare to see even among all the other warriors at the academy. Did he secretly use his warrior energy? I'm not sure what level of warrior energy this young man has, he thought to himself. Qian Jin used his left hand to grab the tongs that were leaning against the anvil. He picked up the hot red pig iron with the tongs and placed it lightly on the anvil. He suddenly raised the 100-pound hammer with his right arm and smashed down. The hammer left a series of dark afterimages in the air, as if a meteor was falling from the sky. The friction with the air made a whooshing sound, as if wind was blowing through the workshop. The hammer landed on the red-hot pig iron with a great momentum. Tink! The hammer collided with the pig iron. Burning sparks flew up like a firework, and the sound of the collisions roared like loud thunder. The blacksmith's smiles had already become frozen on their faces. Their mouths opened wide as they saw this scene. Is this guy from a blacksmithing family? A normal blacksmith couldn't strike like that. They all thought. Qian Jin didn't have time to pay attention to the surrounding people. The hammer in his hand was raised again and smashed down onto the pig iron on the anvil with an almighty strength. It was another ear-piercing metal colliding sound. An element of surprise appeared on top of the appreciation in Franklin's eyes. This. Franklin felt the elbowing from his younger brother Francis. He looked up and saw the perplexed and surprised expression in his eyes as well. Just like warriors and mages, blacksmiths had their own ranking system as well. Most of the blacksmiths would just be like the blacksmiths in this workshop and stay as a blacksmith apprentice in their lifetime. But when a blacksmith reached the level 1 blacksmith rank, his or her status would change dramatically. The quality of weapons and armor that he or she forged would be completely different from blacksmith apprentices. Both Franklin and Francis were level 1 blacksmiths and were famous people at Oakland City. They had way more knowledge than the rest of the blacksmiths in the workshop. Franklin was sure that both the height and the trajectory of the hammer were identical between Qian Jin's 2 strikes, as if the movement was recorded and had been replayed twice. 3 strikes. 5 strikes. 10 strikes. 30 strikes. The workshop at the back room was as quiet as ever. Although the blacksmith apprentices in the room couldn't tell what level Qian Jin was at, they could tell from Qian Jin's movements that he wasn't new to this. Franklin started to gasp. He inhaled through his teeth, and his eyes opened so wide that they were twice the size as before. The surprised expression had turned into deep shock. Francis wasn't doing any better. His eyes were wide opened, and he kept swallowing his saliva. 50 continuous strikes of the same height, same speed and same amount of strength were applied. The trajectories were so perfect that it seemed like they were well calculated. Every strike created brilliant sparks, and there seemed to be a unique steady rhythm to it as well. This. Franklin looked at his brother Francis and said with an uncertain tone, "Level 1 blacksmith." Francis nodded subconsciously. He was thinking, is this guy really a student from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy? Is he really not a blacksmith from a blacksmithing family? How old is this guy? Just like a warrior and a mage, a good blacksmith needs talent too. If he is already a level 1 blacksmith at this age, why would he become a warrior? He should be a blacksmith. He could have an excellent future. 100 strikes. 150 strikes. Qian Jin swung the hammer and tirelessly smashed the pig iron that was becoming smaller and smaller. The sweat had soaked his clothes, it looked like he just got out of the swimming pool. 200 strikes. Chapter 18. Level 2 Refined Iron. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong editor. Ice-T. The metal sparks finally stopped. All the blacksmith apprentices in the back room were frozen. They all stood there and stared at Qian Jin as if he was some kind of demon. Where did this guy come from? He literally swung the 100-pound hammer 200 times in one go and smashed a piece of pig iron that was the size of a human head into the size of a baby's fist, they thought. Just in terms of swinging that hammer, Franklin was the only person in the shop that could do that for 200 swings. Even Francis wasn't able to do that, he was only able to swing it about 30 times. They couldn't imagine how this guy who just walked into the door could do it. What was more crazy was that this young man was a warrior student from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy. That place only teaches people how to kill demons. Do they have someone that teaches blacksmithing now? From the looks of it, it seems like this guy is at least as good as Boss Franklin. But Franklin is a level 1 blacksmith, and that title is accepted all around the continent. The blacksmith apprentices couldn't wrap their heads around it. In the worst-case scenario, if Franklin ditched everything he had and ran to the demon empire, those demons who ate humans alive would give him proper respect. They would allow him to open up a shop in their territory, and they would even free him from paying any tax on his income. They would definitely not kill him like what they would do with any other ordinary human. Franklin tiptoed to the anvil and carefully picked up the piece of iron that was already cooled down by the cold water through Qian Jin's hands. Francis, who followed his brother, made a whistle-like gasping noise. He slowly reached out and touched the piece of iron that glimmered a strange light with his shaky hands. Brother. This. After careful observation of this small piece of iron, Francis looked at Franklin in excitement and found that his brother, who was very confident and had experienced a lot of stuff, was still in shock. That's right. It is a refined iron. Franklin heavily nodded. And it is a level 2 refined iron. The quiet workshop was filled with a series of surprised murmurs. The only thing that these blacksmith apprentices were experiencing was shock. They whispered to each other, refined iron. Did you hear that? Boss said that it is a refined iron. Yeah, I heard that. And it is a level 2 refined iron. Oh Lord. Did I hear that wrong? The boss said before that blacksmiths who could forge a level 1 refined iron from a pig iron would be a level 1 blacksmith. And only level 2 blacksmiths can create level 2 refined iron. Refining iron is the required test that every blacksmith has to go through in order to get ranked. Boss had worked as an apprentice for many years and became a level 1 blacksmith after visiting and learning from a famous blacksmith instructor. How old is this guy? Is he already a level 2 blacksmith? Did the boss make a mistake? This young man is from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy. Aren't they a bunch of people who don't know anything other than fighting? How would I know? But even if Big Boss made a mistake, would the second boss make the same mistake? Don't forget, although the second boss is less talented at blacksmithing compared to the big boss, he is great at observing and identifying things. Qian Jin placed the hammer on the floor and stretched his sore arms. Swinging this 100-pound hammer 200 times in one go was exhausting. Level 2 refined iron. Franklin grabbed the piece of iron from Francis' hand and carefully observed it as well. He reconfirmed his initial assessment. It was this great blacksmith who forged out the impurities from the pig iron and created this level 2 refined iron. Francis looked at Qian Jin and shouted in his own head, "Damn, we are lucky." The only way to forge a top-tier weapon is to use the top-tier raw materials. However, the real precious top-tier materials are too rare. After numerous years of studying and testing, the great blacksmiths in history concluded that there is a way to create top-tier materials, and that is through forging and tempering. Any regular material such as pig iron or copper could be forged into refined iron and refined copper, slowly through the forging and tempering process. The refined materials are ranked based on their properties. Level 2, Level 3. Higher level materials would result in the weapons that were created from these materials to be harder and sharper. Because even essence materials like refined metals were hard to find, a lot of good weapons were still forged from regular material, with only the edge of the blade being forged from refined materials. These weapons were popular and could be sold at a good price. Level 2 Refined Iron. Qian Jin was also surprised by the surrounding blacksmith's murmurs. Back when he was still at the family, he had heard stuff about refined iron. He heard that it was the top-tier material only real blacksmiths could forge. I made a refined iron with just some random strikes. And it is a level 2 refined iron. There was only one thing in Qian Jin's mind: what the heck is that so-called endless world? After getting tortured for 16 hours in there, I actually learned how to blacksmith. And I can even forge out level 2 refined iron now. If this is real, as long as I stay in there every day, I might be able to become a god-tier blacksmith master. Even the most powerful bloodline warrior would have to address me by the name of master respectfully. Franklin walked in front of Qian Jin. He was not calm at all. The level 2 refined iron, that cooled down already felt hot in his hands. Level 2 refined iron. It meant a level 2 blacksmith. This young man forged this out in a very short amount of time. It was way shorter than the time allotted for the level 2 blacksmith examination. He is obviously not someone who just advanced to a level 2 blacksmith, he thought. Are you really a student from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy? Franklin asked carefully, his tone was very respectful. Qian Jin stretched and rubbed his fingers that were stiff after holding the hammer tightly for too long as he nodded. Yeah. So. You are really planning to forge in our shop? Franklin became more cautious. A level 2 blacksmith easily qualified to open up his or her own blacksmith shop. Is this guy here to mess around and cause trouble for us? Franklin thought to himself. Why? Do you think I'm here to make wine? But you are a level 2 blacksmith. Franklin glanced at Qian Jin worriedly. My shop can't afford your salary. I'm only a level 1 blacksmith after all. The excitement on Francis' face turned into anxiousness. There was only one blacksmith shop at Oakland City that had a level 2 blacksmith, and it was a blacksmith shop that was named Godhammer. Although Franklin's shop had a good stream of revenue, it would still be hard for them to hire a level 2 blacksmith. Chapter 19. A share of the profit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T. This. After a quick thought, Qian Jin decided to be honest. Although I know a little bit about blacksmithing, I'm not a level 2 blacksmith. I only know how to forge level 2 refined iron, nothing else. I don't even know who to forge a simple hoe. The murmurs instantly stopped in the back room. The blacksmith apprentices couldn't believe what they heard. Someone who knew how to forge level 2 refined iron didn't know how to forge a simple farming tool. Are you joking? Even blacksmith apprentices who just started knew how to forge that kind of stuff. Franklin felt a stiffness in his neck, as if his head was locked in place by an iron rod. You must be joking. Wait, he seems very serious and doesn't seem like he is kidding. But how could a level 2 blacksmith not know how to forge simple tools, he thought. This was the first time that Franklin encountered something this strange in his career. He couldn't get a word out in a few seconds. I have an idea. How about this? I will lend you tools and the workshop, and I will purchase the level 2 refined iron from you for 1 gold coin apiece. 1 gold coin. Qian Jin's eyes opened wide. When he was working at another shop, he would only receive 1 gold coin a month for his work. I can get a gold coin for just swinging the hammer for a short while. I heard that level 2 refined iron sells for more, but since I need to use their stuff for free, I should let them make more profit, he thought. Is one gold coin too little? How about this? Franklin bit his teeth. He reminded himself that he shouldn't let this young man go. No blacksmith shop would ever put up refined iron for sale. By using level 2 refined iron in forging out weapons and armor, that would elevate the blacksmith shop to another level. I can promise you that I will pay at least a gold coin per pound of your level 2 refined iron. After I forge it into weapons, sell them and recover all the costs, we can split the profit 50-50. How about that? Franklin was still a bit worried. This deal would be very fair for someone who only knew how to forge refined iron. After all, he had to pay for the rent, labor, sales, administrative duties and more. However, if other blacksmith shops knew about Qian Jin, they might pay a higher fee just to get Qian Jin into their doors. Qian Jin, on the other hand, was delighted. He didn't know that keeping his mouth shut would bring him such benefits. One gold coin was a huge amount of money for him, but he could get half of the profit for the sales of the weapons. If this actually happened, then he would never need to worry about getting through life and deal with money issues again. If he was lucky enough, he might have extra money on hand to buy expensive energy stones at the auction, that would benefit him in the long term, especially when he had the chance to use the Warrior Energy Concentration Array. Deal. Qian Jin was excited. He reached out his hand and said, "Just give me that gold coin now." Franklin was surprised that Qian Jin would bring that up first. He turned around and yelled, "Get me a gold coin. Quick." After seeing that Franklin was worried that he might get away, Qian Jin suddenly thought of a question. "Right, boss, I have a question." "Yeah, what is it?" Franklin's attitude was very polite. It made Qian Jin feel like if one had great skill, he or she could get a lot of respect in the industry. Qian Jin scratched his sweaty head and said, "I'm just wondering that if I can forge out a level 3 refined iron, what price would you pay?" Level 3 refined iron. Franklin stared at Qian Jin and didn't know how to answer that question. Forging level 3 refined iron was the core essential skill of a level 3 blacksmith. However, a level 3 blacksmith wasn't common like weeds on the side of the street. At least in Oakland City, there weren't any level 3 blacksmiths. In Franklin's mind, it was harder to advance as a blacksmith compared to warriors and mages. If warriors and mages lacked talent, he or she could purchase energy stones or magic stones if his or her family was rich enough to help them advance. There was no shortcut for the advancement of blacksmiths. The only way was to work hard and rely on pure talent. Level 3 blacksmith. Franklin sighed. The young man in front of him was able to forge level 2 refined iron. At this young age, that meant this young man was talented. However, the fact that he wanted to forge level 3 refined iron was too ambitious. The advancement from level 2 to level 3 wasn't that easy for blacksmiths. "Yeah, what's the price for level 3 refined iron?" Qian Jin asked again. He thought that after spending 16 hours in the endless world, he was able to become someone who could forge level 2 refined iron. He literally knew nothing about blacksmithing beforehand. If he spent more time in there, he thought he could probably forge out level 3 or 4 refined iron. Franklin laughed. "If you could forge level 3 refined iron, then we would give you 90% of the profit on the sales of weapons and armor. We will only take 10% of the profit." Francis nodded on the side. This deal was very fair. There was no comparison between level 2 refined iron and level 3 refined iron. If level 3 refined iron was used for the blade of a weapon or the vital protection areas of armor, the price of the item would increase more than 5 times. But what was even better was the promotion for the blacksmith shop. If people knew Franklin's blacksmith shop could produce level 3 refined iron, they would get a lot more business. 90%. Qian Jin was very satisfied. He flipped the gold coin he just got into the air and caught it before it dropped. He said as he walked out, "Boss, I will come back tomorrow. I have some things to handle today. Franklin tilted his body forward slightly and bowed. You are more than welcome to come back any time you want. You don't have to follow the schedule, just come here at your convenience. Great. I will see you guys soon. Qian Jin sprinted out of the blacksmith shop and started running back to Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy. All he could think of was the hat that gave him the nickname, extremely ugly-looking guy. The benefit of that hat outweighed all the drawbacks it brought. His strength increased a lot overnight, he learnt the basics of blacksmithing, he was able to make a gold coin by spending only a few hours now compared to a month before, and there was a bonus share of the profit in the future. With this mysterious hat sitting at home, Qian Jin felt like he had no time to wander around aimlessly. His heart was already in the endless world. It offered training, blacksmithing knowledge, and a way for him to make good money. Where could he find anything better? On top of that, Qian Jin remembered that he learnt the skill, forge. Did it mean that he could learn how to forge out all kinds of tools and weapons? He could definitely save money by not buying those things from shops. If he wanted to, he might be able to sell them to make more money. Wait. There was also the study of magic arrays in the endless world. If he could learn the skill, engraving, and learn how to engrave runes, he could even become a magic forging master. Chapter 20. Establishing Dominance. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Yudong Editor. Ice-T. Qian Jin was so excited that it gave him goosebumps. Magic forging masters. Even the most powerful warriors and mages would have to pay their respects to magic forging masters, they had to be polite when addressing them, and they didn't dare to act arrogantly in front of them. The most powerful families, even the royal family, would offer a lot of favorable terms to recruit them. Even if they decided to work for them, they wouldn't be treated as normal retainers or courtiers. Magic forging masters. They would become the center of attention wherever they went. They would always be the special retainers who would get paid and weren't required to work. If they felt like it, they could casually create some gadgets, and that would make powerful families extremely happy. Magic forging master, Qian Jin shook his head as he felt very motivated. You don't say. Even when I was back at the Qian family, I had only heard of magic forging masters, I never actually saw one. If I could actually become one. Qian Jin couldn't help but drool uncontrollably. 1 gold coin, which was worth a whole month of effort, was now easily earned by just swinging the hammer for a short time. Qian Jin even felt lighter when he walked. He whistled as he walked into a cloth shop and picked out a suitable cloth that could be used as a sheet. He didn't go hard and negotiate to save 1 copper coin with the elder woman who owned the shop, he paid directly and left. The hat. The only thing that was on Qian Jin's mind was that mysterious hat and the game called Endless World that was associated with it. From the simple practice of the fundamentals of blacksmithing, getting water from the well became easy. Moreover, beating Rudy, who was ranked 3rd on the strength ranking for grade 1, in an arm wrestle was like beating a kid. Even that blacksmith shop which had never accepted students from Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy treated him like an important guest. All of these things happened because of that strange hat. Qian Jin continued thinking as he paced himself back to the academy, he really wanted to see what else the endless world could offer. After he got past a number of structures and buildings and returned to the academy, he saw a few students staring at him strangely from afar. Some students were standing in the hallway of the dorm, and some students peeked out of their windows. They had one thing in common, they didn't say a word to Qian Jin. What's happening? Qian Jin was very curious, am I that unlucky? Did the extremely ugly-looking incident become that well known? The door to his room was open. The door was kicked open rather than pushed open to be exact. The door that was intact a few hours ago had turned into a few unequal pieces of wood. They laid on the floor quietly. There were some obvious traces in the room, his lunch box that he used to get food from the cafeteria also laid on the ground quietly, but it had been clearly stepped on by someone. It was deformed, his drinking cup was also smashed into pieces. Thieves. Robbers. The first thing that Qian Jin thought about after seeing the mess was the hat. He rushed into the room. The hat was at the same place and in the same condition as when he left the room. It was still tied under the bed and not damaged at all. Qian Jin got up and carefully observed the messy room. Nothing had gone missing. But from his lunch box and cup, someone had definitely struggled and resisted when people came in. Qian Jin shook his head and got rid of the idea of thieves and robbers in his mind. Unless thieves or robbers were tired of living and didn't have the courage to commit suicide, they wouldn't come into Oakland's Warrior and Mage Academy to commit crimes. This was the academy that trained people to kill demons in the future on the battlefield. The warriors and mage students didn't mind treating bad guys as demons and make them disappear. There was an envelope on the table where a lot of Qian Jin's belongings were placed on. To Qian Jin. These were the only words on the envelope. Qian Jin could sense the impetuousness of the writer. He opened the envelope and pulled out a letter that had messy writing on it. Roland is in my hands. If you are not brave enough to come to the little forest at the back of the academy, then you will meet your friend in the hospital. Caesars. Qian Jin squeezed the letter in his hand tightly as he bit on his upper lip. Is this dude crazy? He thought, did he not learn his lesson from last time? Roland too. There are so many girls to like, so why does he have to chase after Julius? That woman is arrogant as f***ck. Why bother? He looked at Roland's bed and then his own bed. When he just got to the academy, he was so poor that he didn't even have a copper coin to pay for food. If it wasn't for Roland who made bets with him and lost on purpose to support him, he would have had to work all the time and have no time to train at all. After leaving his family and becoming independent, Qian Jin learned that life wasn't easy. However, since he had decided to leave his family, he wanted to stand tall and handle everything like a man on his own and live a fulfilling life. He threw the letter onto the ground and walked out. Roland was the only good friend he had, and he owed Roland a huge favor. As a man, he knew what time he should return a favor, and what time to get revenge. As a warrior, he knew not to back down from challenges. The little forest. Qian Jin shrugged his shoulders as he walked along the hallway and ignored all the glances and stares. Okay, I will use this opportunity to establish my dominance and tell people who think I'm an easy target to back off. Qian Jin quickly disappeared from the end of the hallway and left the dorm. The students who were staring at Qian Jin all shook their heads. Qian Jin will suffer this time. Maybe he still doesn't know that Caesars isn't planning on fighting by himself. Caesars paid a lot of money and got Revolver, Skyblade, who is ranked at the 8th spot on the fighting ability ranking in grade 1, he is ranked higher than Qian Jin. He is slick at the Demon Ape Beast fighting technique, even the instructors complimented him on that. Revolver, Skyblade wasn't someone like Caesars. A few brave students decided to follow Qian Jin to the little forest after a little hesitation. The battle of the top 10 was rare to see. They all wanted to see how long Qian Jin could battle with someone who was ranked higher than him until he was defeated. There was a huge hill at the backyard of the academy. There would be no exaggeration if it was described as a little mountain. All kinds of trees and plants were located on it. The initial plan was to create a simulated environment for the students. After all, these students would go into the front line of the war with the demons. This type of environment simulation would do wonders for the students, and it would increase their chances of survival. However, this hill filled with trees had also turned into a place for students to solve their own disputes and grudges.